And so yeah, welcome to the fifth entry to the palming livestream lecture series. This is the clip steal. So this is going to look kind of bad from this angle because this is exposed, but this is essentially the clip steal, right? So this is the clip steal, and it's a move that's derived from the side slip and the side steal. And if you haven't watched any of those videos on the side steal and the side slip, you probably should, because I'm not going to re-explain some parts regarding that, because since there's like a derivative move of that, I'm not really going to cover too much into detail how you get into position and the main covering actions for this move. So this is going to be a sort of a slimmed down version of how I usually do things, but it's still going to be a relatively long and detailed video, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, this is going to be the clip steal. Okay, so let's go over the history regarding the clip steal. So the clip steal, well, the first instance of the clip steal actually being published, to my knowledge, is in Magician's Tricks, How They Are Done, which was published back in 1910 by Henry Haddon and Adrian Plate. So yeah, that was pretty much I think that's pretty much universally where people agree where the clip steal actually comes from. But whether or not it's actually the first instance that a clip steal has been published remains to be seen, because again, magic literature spans so many decades, so many centuries, it's really hard to really track everything down. So for now, this is our first entry. There was then a second clip steal that was published, and that is a clip steal to the bottom of the deck. This was described in a manuscript by Arthur Buckley. This was in Triple Climax back in 1921. So that is in a normal manuscript. It wasn't like in a particular book. It's just like little manuscript, okay? And then the clip steal that we all know and love is in Sight Steal by Ed Marlowe. This was a booklet that was published back in 1957. And yeah, I mean, it's the one that I'm going to be showing you, which is just this one over here, okay? So that is the clip steal. And funnily enough, a year before the Sight Steal pamphlet, so in 1956, in another Ed Marlowe booklet called Action Palm, there was also another move called clip steal. It's a different move with different mechanics, but it has the same name, which is sort of interesting, right? So I just thought I should toss that in the history section, because I just find it interesting that Marlowe would name two of his own things the same thing, right? So yeah, so it's a completely different move. It does go into a clip, but it has different sort of mechanics, right? So that's the clip steal. And that's pretty much it for the history for the clip steal. There's really not much to go over the clip steal. It's surprisingly very direct. If you've seen any other like magic history move, if you've seen any other video of mine on magic history, you'd know that magic history goes in like all over the place, right? But this is relatively direct, so this is a nice change of pace. So I'll explain how I like to handle this move, and then you can customize it however you like, which again, if you don't know how to customize this move, which is just like the selection process, the covering actions and all that, I go into that a bit more in the side steal videos. So if you haven't watched the side slip and the side steal videos, I highly recommend it, because again, I won't go over them anymore. So this will be just a trimmed down version of those. So what you're going to do is that you're going to start off in a right hand build grip that's leaning towards the right. Again, every time I go over the side steal, I go over this build grip in particular, because if you're gripping the deck directly on top of it, one, it looks really odd, and two, well, if you have it leaning towards the right, you actually have a lot more cover for the move, because if you have it directly on top, every time you do a side jog or any sort of angle jog work, this will flash. So you really want your right hand to be leaning towards the right, just to hide all the dirty work, like so, okay? So you have a deck that's gripped in a build grip that's leaning towards the right. You're going to have a card selected through a dribble. Again, you can do it however you like, but personally, I much prefer it doing it from a dribble just because it cuts a few corners here and there, okay? So you're going to have a card selected from a dribble, and you're going to display the card that's on the bottom of the upper packet, which in this case is the 6 of diamonds. So you're just going to lift it up and display it around like so, okay? You're just going to display around like so. After that, you're going to square the 2 packets up, but the upper packet is going to approach from the right instead of directly straight down. Because if you approach it directly straight down, you won't have the opportunity to do, well, the dirty work. So you want to approach it from the right. So the reason why you actually approach it from the right, again, is the dirty work. But to go more into the dirty work, what you want to do is that you want to actually just relax and extend the left middle ring and pinky finger. And just by extending and relaxing these fingers, you're exposing the pads of these fingers, which is extremely important because as you approach this packet from the right, the face of this card is just going to contact the pads of these fingers. And just from pure friction, this packet is going to continue moving to the right, and this card is going to remain in place and become side jogged. So this is just from pure friction. It's just going to touch it, and then it's just going to remain side jogged like so. Okay. So there's no pressure that's applied on this card. It's just from pure friction, and it's just side jogged like so. Okay. So again, once you have this card basically side jogged, you're going to continue moving to the right until 2 things happen. So you're going to continue moving until you realize that the upper right corner of the selection is trapped in between of your right pinky and your right ring finger. So you'll realize that as you side jog this card, it's actually moving towards your ring finger and your pinky finger, like so. And by moving towards them, you then have the opportunity to slip the upper right corner in between of your pinky finger and ring finger, like so. And this puts it into clip. This all happens as you execute the side jog and as you square up the cards, right? So what's basically happening, I'm going to give a bad angle view of this from a weird angle on my wrist. So what's happening is that you're pushing this card and you're feeding this corner in between of the pinky and ring finger, like so. Okay, so already this card is already clipped, and this is just from the squaring action. So you're basically already 90% done with the move before you've even squared up the 2 packets, right? Because at this point you should be around here. So you're already clipping this card in between of your ring finger and pinky finger. This is the pinky clip, by the way. So you're just clipping the top right corner in between of your pinky and ring finger, like so. Okay, so it's a very simple move, and that's the general position that you should be ending up in as you're here. Okay, you're also going to continue moving this packet to the left until it's squared with the rest of the deck, like so. Okay, so this should be the position that you end up in after both packets come together, like so. Okay, so again, this card is already clipped, and don't worry about the card bending. It's just a very, very minor bend. It's not going to damage the card in any way unless you're actually like trying to force it open or something like that. So it's just a very gentle bend, like so. Okay, once you have this in position, what you're going to do is that you're just going to move your left thumb onto the upper left corner of the deck, just like so. So now what you have is that you have deck clipped in between of your thumb and the base of your index finger, like so. So it should be around here. So these 2 points should be clipping the deck, like so, okay? And this is all underneath of the right hand billow grip, okay? So the reason why you actually clip it is to anchor everything in place, because if you don't have this, the upper packet just moves around, right? So you really want to clip and anchor everything down with your thumb and index finger, okay? So now all you have to do is just separate both hands. And by separating both hands, the card will naturally come along for the ride into your right hand. And that's how you get a card into a pinky clip. And what you do with the card is now entirely up to you, because you've already stolen the card. So if you're planning on keeping this card in your hand, I actually like to switch from a pinky clip to a Chloe-esque palm. So all I do is I let my fingers, I let my ring finger, middle finger, and index finger actually curl around the front edge of this card. My index finger is contacting the upper left corner of this card, and my thumb is now just contacting the area below of this top left corner. So all my fingers are just gently curled around of this card, like so. Right, so you can tell that there are pretty good angles for this move, for this palm. So it's basically a Tenkai palm, which again, Tenkai palm is just this, mixed with a pinky clip. So the Chloe-esque palm, I find, is probably the best of both worlds, and that's why I much prefer it over other moves. So this is the Chloe-esque palm. So you can keep it in the Chloe-esque palm. What Marlo did, on the other hand, was actually a control to the top. So if you want to control the 3 of spades to the top, so what Marlo did was that he actually removes a card from the deck with a forward gesture with the right hand. So he said, "Do you remember your card?" or anything along those lines. So he says, just say a line that justifies this forward movement. So he says, "Do you remember your card?" or anything, and this is all under the guise of this, right? So from the audience perspective, it should be this, okay? Do you remember your card, right? So just slightly turn your body to the left and just gesture, okay? And then as his right hand returns to the returns to his where his body is, you're just going to slide this card on top of the deck. And as you do that, it's just going to tuck underneath of your right thumb, like so. And once it's on top of the deck, you're just going to relax pressure on the on your pinky finger and ring finger to release this card from a pinky clip. And you just transfer the deck into your right hand billow grip and just complete the squaring action and just place the deck down. Okay, and that's how you get this move as a control to the top. So in motion, it should be a gesture, replacement, and that's that. So that is how Ed Marlowe actually used the clip steal, whereas I usually like to use it to get into a Chloe-esque palm, right? So that's just a personal preference. The next thing that you can do with a clip steal is actually a clip steal to the bottom. This, again, is a Marlowe handling, so it's going to be the exact same thing as the top control. The only difference is that as your right hand comes back, you're going to clip the deck in between your left index and your thumb, just like how we were anchoring the deck in place before. And you're just going to straighten out the other left fingers. So you're just going to flan them out like so, right? And by flanning them out, this gives you the opportunity to actually just slip this card from the upper right corner into the bottom of the deck like so. Okay, so it's just going to feed into it. And as you do that, you can then release the card from a pinky clip, so it can still remain side jogged. You're just going to release this card from a pinky clip, transfer it into a billow grip, use your left middle ring and pinky finger to just square everything up, and then you transfer the deck into a right hand billow grip and table it or do whatever with it. And that's the move as a bottom control. So in motion, it should be just a very quick like gesture, feed, and that's that, right? And don't worry about these fingers flashing because your right hand will cover the finger extension, right? So it should be like this, right? Obviously, I'm doing it from a weird angle, but that's how it should be. So just a couple of tips for the move. Generally, this move is significantly easier than most side steals because there's a lot less moving parts, but you can still run into a couple of issues here and there, so I'll just try my best to cover them. So if the card doesn't land in between of your right pinky and ring finger, so over here, then that means that your right hand isn't leaned to the right enough, okay? So you might have to really exaggerate this right lean, okay? Because if you don't, then there might be a couple of weird things that happen. Sometimes if it's not leaned enough, then you might have to re-grip the deck as you square up the cards. It's very weird. So you really want this to be one fluid action. So you can tell that when the moment I side jog this card, it goes into a clip, okay? I don't have to readjust this grip or do whatever. It's just a straight push, and then it is in a clip, okay? So you might need to readjust your dribble grip. So usually when I do a dribble, it's from the corner, but when I do the clip steal, I have to slightly move it to the center just to really accommodate for the move. So you might need to adjust your dribble, but I find that that's better than readjusting your grip as you display the selection. So you might have to just do that, right? I find that that's better than needing to right? as you display the card. So just get into position before you start the move, okay? Like so. So everything should be one smooth dribble, display, and then steal. Okay? There should be no delay, there should be no readjustments, everything should be just one smooth motion. Another problem that you might run into is that if the card isn't fully clipped by the pinky and ring finger by the time the two packets are squared up, you can actually resolve this with two solutions. So what I mean by this is that if you're here and it hasn't reached like your pinky or your ring finger just yet, then there's two ways to actually resolve that. So first is that you can begin side jogging the card earlier by contacting the left fingers earlier. So if this card isn't like clipped by the time the two packets are squared up, then that means that you're probably starting the side jog a bit too late. You're probably starting it like here and it's too far away from your pinky and ring finger. So you can start the side jog a bit more closer to here. So then you have more space for this card to sort of move towards your ring finger and pinky finger, like so. The second thing is that you can actually extend your middle ring and pinky finger. You can extend them towards the right. So then you can further side jog this card. And by further side jogging this card, you're going to push this upper right corner towards these your pinky and your ring finger, like so. Okay. And that's how you compensate for the problem of in case your side jog is not big enough. Okay. A third problem that you might have is that if you get a rubbing sound when you do the steal, that means the card isn't on the same plane as the rest of the deck when you steal it. So what I mean by this is that generally how the sound is actually produced is this. You have a card side jogged, you start moving this card, and then you start breaking the plane, right? You start bending this card, right? It's either by habit or by whatever, but you might see something like this or whatever, right? I'm exaggerating that, but by doing any sort of motion like that, you're bending this card and causing this long edge to actually snap out of the deck, right? So that's what happens when you actually change the plane before this card clears out. So what you want to do is that you want this card to actually remain on the same plane as the rest of the deck until it clears. And once it clears, that's when you can start breaking this plane, right? That's when you can start going into a diagonal, right? Because if you don't, you get this. You don't want that. So you want one smooth motion, right? On the same plane. So that is how, you mitigate the sounds for the clip steal. Another problem you might have is that the card is sticking out from your pinky. So you might see some cases like this, right? Where the card is sticking out. Or this card is sliding out from your pinky like so, right? It's just sliding out like so. So if that happens, then that means that you're like me and you have bony fingers and you have this window in between of your ring finger and pinky finger, like so, right? So you can see that there's actually a window over here. So if that happens, you're going to move the card slightly upwards, right? You're just going to move it slightly upwards so that it's not contacting the base of these fingers. It's actually contacting the joints over here, right? It's contacting the joint between your pinky finger and your ring finger. So this area over here, that's the area that you want to aim for the pinky clip, okay? And if you get this smearing of cards when you extract this card, so I'll try and make an example. So if you get like a smearing of cards, I can't do that apparently, but if you get a smearing of cards when you extract this card, make sure that you're clipping across the top left corner of the deck and apply pressure onto the top left corner of the deck. Because if you put your thumb anywhere else, or you don't put enough pressure onto this top left corner of the deck, the cards will smear. So make sure that you're applying pressure on the correct location and enough pressure to keep everything from moving. So everything should be anchored in place, like so, okay? Now, as stated in the history section, there is another move by Ed Marlowe that has clip steal in the name, and that is from his Action Palm booklet. So anytime that a palm is done with an overt action as a covering action, we refer to that as an action palm. So this steal is done under the action of an overhand shuffle. But this move does go into a clip. It's a different clip, but still technically a clip, okay? So let's go over the clip position first and then explain the rest of the move. So you have one card actually clipped in between of your index and your middle finger. So this is drastically different. If you have windows closer to palm, you're going to have to clip the card closer again to the joints of these fingers. Okay, so you're going to have to clip them in between of your middle and ring finger, index and middle finger, sorry. Once you have that, you're just going to curl in. You're just going to relax and curl in your middle ring and pinky finger so that they rest underneath of this card, like so. Okay? The card by itself is tucked underneath of the fat of the thumb, like so. and your thumb is just laying there, relaxed and contacting the index finger, like so. And that is the index clip, like so, okay? And that is the clip that you'll use for this clip steel in particular, okay? Now, obviously, there's quite a couple of angle issues with this move. You can't really do it from the front. You can only do it from the left side. So that's something you do have to take into consideration, okay? But again, like many palms anyways, you shouldn't be holding this position for too long. So yeah, but since we've learned the clip, we can now learn the move. So the card that you want to steal is on top of the deck. We'll use a card like the Ace of Spades. So what you're going to do is that you're going to get into overhand shuffle position, like so. And you're going to start the shuffle by thumbing off one card. That's the card that you want to steal. Actually, you know what? I'll leave this card face up. So I'll thumb this card off. But I will actually want this card to land in between of my index and middle finger, right? So the moment I thumb this card off, I'm already clipping it, right? So this is such a straightforward action. So in action, it should just be like that, right? So it's a stupidly simple action, right? So you're just going to shuffle off one card, and it basically just goes into clip already. All right. You then shuffle the rest of the deck normally on top of the clip card and on top of your index finger, okay? So you're just going to continue the overhand shuffle, and you'll see this very distinct separation in between of this card and the rest of the overhanded shuffled cards, all right? So you just have, so basically the only suspicious action in this move is just thumbing off one card, right? And you're basically already done with the move. And then the rest of the move is just an overhand shuffle, like so. All right. And from the side, it shouldn't look too bad, right? From the side over here, it shouldn't look too bad as well. So basically this move is covered from all the angles, all right? The smearing of the overhand shuffle actually helps hide the move as well, okay? So once you've shuffled off the rest of your deck, it's very simple from then on. What you're just going to do is that you're just going to tilt your left hand towards the right. You're just going to tilt it and allow these cards to actually just slip into your right hand. But because you're clipping this card in between your index and middle finger, these cards are just going to slide out on top of this card into your right hand, and then this card is just going to remain in place. Okay? Once you've done that, you're just going to drop your left hand off to your side and do whatever that you need to do is, okay? So, Ed Marlowe just says he just drops it to the side, and that's that, okay? So that is the clip steal as an action palm. That is the one that Ed Marlowe published in his Action Palm booklet. It's a very, very straightforward move, as most clip steals will be, but it's also a very, very effective move. You just have to be conscious of your angles. So if you want to do the move as a multiple card clip steal, it very much so is possible. It's going to be the exact same thing. The only difference is at the start. Instead of thumbing off one card, you're going to continue thumbing off individual cards and putting them in between of your index and middle finger, okay? You're going to thumb off the amount of cards that you need. So in this case, it's the 4 aces. So I just thumb off four cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all in clip position now. And I just shuffle off the rest of the cards on top of these 4 cards, like so. And it's just going to be the exact same thing. Just dump these cards out and then drop my left hand off to the side. And that is the clip steal action palm. So that is a very effective move by Ed Marlowe. here are just a couple of applications for the clip steal. So obviously you can do it as a control to the top or the bottom. We've gone through that throughout this video. But what you can also do is that you can also use it as a top or bottom steal. So you want to steal the top card. You're just going to use your left thumb to push over this card as your right hand comes over and clips this card like so. All right, and from there it's just so simple. You just already have the card in a pinky clip. If you want to steal the bottom card, what you're just going to do is that you're just going to approach the deck in the right hand bill grip. You're going to curl in your left middle ring and pinky finger, and you're just going to extend those fingers, causing them to become side jogged. And the moment they become side jogged, they're just going to reach for your right pinky and ring finger and go into a clip, right? So they're just going to reach for it, and now it's in a pinky clip, right? So that is just a top or bottom steal. The second thing they can do is just an add-on. So again, you have like 3 cards on the table or whatever, and you have a card stolen here. Still, you steal this card out and just goes down, and that is an add-on. Ed Marlowe also does the clip steal as a color change. His handling is pretty interesting. So you have a card face up on top of the deck. You steal a card that's reversed in the center of the deck. So it's stolen. What Ed Marlowe actually does is that he places his hands actually sort of on top of the deck. So he turns his body to the side, sort of, right? And his right hand is now covering the face of the deck, like so. What he does now is that, so he's placing the cards in an L position, like so. What he does is now he moves his right hand to the top, like so. He continues moving this card to the top until it hits the left thumb. So now you can see the bottom index of this card, right? So here displays the top index, move, display the bottom index, like so. So now you're in this inverted L shape. And now what he does is that as he moves back downwards, he just drops this card from the pinky clip and adds this card on top of the deck, okay? So it is a steal, display, brush once, and then deposit this card, okay? So in motion, it should be a here, move once, and then replace, right? I don't really do this color change all that well because I have another handling for this. So my preferred handling for this is just having my thumb on top of the deck and just extending my fingers and then just adding this card on. Yeah. I think that actually just looks better because there's not weird like waves around. It's just one single change, right? So that's how I usually like it, right? So it's the same thing as just the standard top card replacement for the clip change. You're just doing it as a color change, right? So yeah, I just prefer that handling. But again, if you prefer the Ed Marlowe handling, then please do it. But generally, I just like doing this more than I prefer doing this thing, right? So that is the color change by Ed Marlowe, and just a simplified version that I prefer. You can use it as a production, so you have a card reversed on the bottom. Just push out this card, do the bottom steal, and then just produce this card, right? Simple. If you want to vanish this card, same thing, right? Have a card face up on top of the deck, steal it, and then just vanish this card, right? But one of my favorite applications for the clip steal is actually pretty interesting. You're actually going to delay the future reverse. And that's pretty interesting, right? If I've actually live streamed the future reverse, and I actually have a video on the future reverse as well. But you can actually delay the future reverse. The way that you do it is that you execute the clip steal. So I want to delay the future reverse. So I'm going to reverse the queen of clubs. So I steal out the queen of clubs. I hand the deck out for people to shuffle. In this case, I'll just give them a cut or whatever, because I don't really have another hand to shuffle the cards with. There we go. Right? So we give them a shuffle, and now they can verify that all the cards are face down. They hand the deck back to you, and what you can do now is that your right hand comes over, it brushes against the left fingers like so. You transfer it into a right hand bill grip, and then you just open up the deck. And by opening up the deck, your left fingers can now contact this card, and you can execute a future reverse like so. And then you can display that the Queen of Clubs is face up in the deck that they shuffled. All right. So that's just a pretty interesting application for the clip steal, mixing it with the future reverse, which I taught on the channel before. So yeah, that's just a pretty interesting thing for the clip steal. All right, and that was the clip steal. Sorry if I was a mess at the beginning of the live stream. That happens sometimes. But yeah, if you're interested in learning more about the clip steal, there's quite a lot of resources. So first is Revolutionary Card Technique by Ed Marlowe. There's Andrus Deals You In by Jerry Andrus. Andrus Card Control by Jerry Andrus. You'll realize that if you study Jerry Andrus's work, he has really big hands, but also he has a lot of work on clips and all of that. So if you're looking for more clip work and all of that, Jerry Andrus's work is the way to do it. So yeah, I actually own all his books, so that's cool, right? So highly recommend Jerry Andrus's work. There's another thing that's called Sidewinder by Akira Fuji. That's something they should learn as well. It's basically a very simplified version of the clip steal using, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it. You can go watch it. And there's also a study on Leonard Green by Takumi Takahashi. There, yeah, explains a Leonard Green move that is sort of similar to the clip steal as well. And then there's The Secrets of Sosato by Sosato and written by Richard Kaufman. So that is something that you can study as well. So this is actually probably one of my favorite ways to steal a card from out of the deck. There's just something about not needing to apply any sort of pressure other than the card that you want to steal. And you know, you just separate your hands, and that steals the card. There's something very mechanically satisfying about that because it's just so streamlined, right? It's so bizarre, right? Whereas with if you look at the side steal, there needs to be like a slight like readjustment and flattening of the hand. And then for deliberate steal, like your hands have to remain in contact all this time. It's like it's like I love those moves, right? They're very mechanically interesting, and I mean they're very nice, but the simplicity of as you square up the cards, you're already stealing this card. It's so nice. There's just something about that that's just so appealing, right? But obviously, depending on your hands and your style, you can use whichever that you want. I just really like the clip steal because I just like going into a Chloe's palm. So yeah, again, it depends on your style, depends on what you want, and yeah. But that's going to be it for the clip steal. Sorry if in the middle of the live stream that was kind of weird. I'll put all the chapters again. It'll be simple, right? I'll just be editing that out. But besides that, yeah, that's gonna be it. Yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you guys next time for the final palming live stream lecture next month, which is going to be on the DPS, the diagonal palm shift.